some mushrooms have become incredibly adept at manufacturing specialized compounds that naturally repel these opportunistic pathogens, potential pathogens. All of us have them.
Yeah.
We all are carrying around staph and strep and different bacteria that, given the chance to become overgrown, will become pathogenic. Mushrooms, on top of being able to manufacture compounds that naturally repel these, also have been shown to selectively feed our good bacteria, our lactobacillus acidophilus, our bifidobacterium. And if we have a larger complement of these good bacteria, these probiotics in our digestive tract, the chances an opportunistic pathogen can overgrow diminishes. One thing we do know mushrooms do is as they travel through the digestive tract, they come into contact with the 70% of our immune cells that also reside in our digestive tract and cause them to be more alert and more aware of everything that's going on around them. They're also highly prebiotic and selectively prebiotic, meaning that they feed the good bacteria in our digestive system.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Healthy Habit Podcast. Today, we're talking with Gina Rivers, host defense, National Science Educator, who's a community herbalist and educator with over 30 years of experience in the natural products industry. Gina's curriculum vitae includes retail management, sales rep, herbal and nutritional education and consultation, and formulation. So she's gone from top to bottom, the ins and outs of that whole process. She began her study of herbalism at the age of 15, and has had the opportunity to study with some of the most eminent leaders in the field. Gina, welcome to your first episode on the podcast, but Gina and I have been talking on the radio program back on 1100 KFNX over the years. So welcome to the podcast, Gina.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. I'm really, really happy to be here.
Thanks for taking the time to come on. So since 15 years old, you've been involved in the natural world, so natural products world and supplement industry. So kind of give us a little, what led you to this point with host defense and focusing in on the fungi world, the world of mushrooms?
Well, I think it all started, I want to say around 2010, I believe, 2009. I was serving as a community herbalist for a little health food store that sadly is no longer in business in Atlanta. And I had an experience with using the line that just blew my mind. It was unlike anything I'd ever experienced using herbs. The power that mushrooms have when they interact with the immune system is truly nothing short of just amazing. And so that inspired me to study more about mushrooms because I had never learned about them in my herbal education at all in the United States. Our culture just isn't really, when we think of mushrooms, we think of boring, floppy things that are on top of a pizza. We don't think of beautiful creations like maitake and shiitake and reishi. But other cultures have been using mushrooms for thousands of years. And this experience just really inspired me to start learning more about the traditional uses as well as the scientific ways that mushrooms are used.
What are mushrooms good for then? You mentioned quickly the immune system there. That's maybe why a lot of people get introduced into mushrooms, is to support that immune system. So that's part of it. But what else? What else do you think of when it comes to mushrooms? How do they support human health and longevity?
Well, it depends on which mushroom we're talking about. All mushrooms on some level have an immune modulatory action, meaning when you ingest them and they're well cooked, or if you're taking them in a supplement form that's been prepared well, they are having this beautiful balancing action on all the different parts of your immune system. However, some of them have overlapping benefits for other body systems as well. What comes to mind right off the top of my head is the beautiful mushroom lion's mane that so many people are very familiar with now, because lion's mane, on top of being beautifully immunomodulatory when you consume it, also contains very specific compounds that interact with nerve growth factor in the body, brain-derived neurotrophic factor in the body. So there's been a few human clinical trials that show lion's mane may help with cognition and focus and memory. And a lot of people are wanting that benefit from taking that mushroom. So that's just one example of overlapping benefit for different body systems.
Right. So it depends what's going on, depends what mushroom we're discussing. I've talked to a friend of mine recently about chaga, how good it is for the skin, the integumentary system, which not many people are discussing that. So amazing. Let's start then. What's your personal favorite mushroom if you have one, or top two, and then we'll dive in deeper.
Ganoderma lucidum, or any of the Ganodermas, which we know better as
reishi.
Yeah, reishi is just has to be hands down my favorite mushroom. Not only is it beautiful to come across in the forest and to find, it has over a 2,000-year clinical history that's been recorded in Chinese medicine. It probably goes back further than that. That's just the written history we have.
Yeah.
And it has been studied for nearly every single body system and found to be beneficial. So if there is just one single mushroom that I could take for health and wellness and longevity out there, reishi would be my first choice.
Yeah. And like you said, the data is there. It's science backed. You know, it actually has a positive effect on the human body. If you're consistent, right? You want to talk about that a little bit? How important is it to be consistent with taking mushrooms and supplements in general?
Well, with mushrooms and herbs and supplements in general, consistency is really key. We have to remember we're putting these food substances into capsules or into extracts to make them easier for us to take, but they are not drugs. They're not pharmaceuticals. They're not making the body do something in most cases. They're working gently with the energies in the body to help bring the body back to balance. So getting these substances in your system on a daily basis is really key for success when we're adding them to our daily wellness routine.
Amazing. So can you give us a little lowdown on how mushrooms work in general? Is there like a certain number of pathways that it routinely does depending on the mushroom, or is it all just completely all over the place? What's the gist of it? Like, how are they working in the body?
Gosh, that's a big question. Fundamentally, we have evolved on this planet to be much closer to the fungal kingdom. So we share around 55% of the same DNA with mushrooms. To put that into contrast, we share around 15% with the plant kingdom. And so because of this commonality, mushrooms manufacture certain compounds that we may be better able to recognize when we take them into our own systems. One thing we do know mushrooms do is as they travel through the digestive tract, they come into contact with the 70% of our immune cells that also reside in our digestive tract and cause them to be more alert and more aware of everything that's going on around them. They're also highly prebiotic and selectively prebiotic, meaning that they feed the good bacteria in our digestive system. So those are two benefits. No matter which mushroom you choose, you're going to get some interaction with. And then mushrooms also, depending on which one, they're all very different. It's like, what are herbs good for? There's different types of herbs. There's different types of mushrooms. If you're looking for longevity and cardiovascular support, I would always say go with reishi. If you're looking for oxygenation and more energy in your daily life, more vitality, I'd say try the cordyceps mushroom. If you're looking for help with your epithelial skin cells or your digestive cells or your lung cells, chaga is beautiful for that one. So they all have their own specialty.
Yeah.
And it's really, really a lot of fun once you start digging in and figuring out what all of these mushroom allies can do for us.
So we've talked about on the radio and even on the podcast this year, the difference between prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics. And you just hinted at the fact that mushrooms can feed the good bacteria in the gut, which is a prebiotic function. Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Absolutely. In fact, interestingly, some of the same pathogens that we become susceptible to, mushrooms are also susceptible to in nature. So some mushrooms have become incredibly adept at manufacturing specialized compounds that naturally repel these opportunistic pathogens, potential pathogens. All of us have them. Yeah. We all are carrying around staph and strep and different bacteria that, given the chance to become overgrown, will become pathogenic. Mushrooms, on top of being able to manufacture compounds that naturally repel these, also have been shown to selectively feed our good bacteria, our
Mm.
lactobacillus acidophilus, our bifidobacterium. And if we have a larger complement of these good bacteria, these probiotics in our digestive tract, the chances an opportunistic pathogen can overgrow diminishes. So we want to always promote and feed our good bacteria and keep those opportunistic bacteria at a minimum in our digestive tract.
A lot of
Really, any.
people, yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So a lot of people have heard about lion's mane for the central nervous system, for the brain, for the nerves, nerve health in general. Is it true that mushrooms then can be good for the brain, or is it just lion's mane?
It isn't just lion's mane.
Okay.
There was a large scale study that was published back in 2019. It probably didn't get enough attention because of everything going on with the pandemic. But this was a large scale study that was being done in China. I think it had over 600 participants,
Hmm.
all different age ranges, different genders. But they found that people that ate 2 or more servings of mushrooms a week had a 60% less chance of cognitive decline than those that consumed 1 or less servings
Wow.
of mushrooms per week. We think that might be because of a very special antioxidant that's found in mushrooms called ergothioneine.
Hmm.
Ergothioneine is, we have to get it for our food source. It's not an antioxidant that we can make in our body, and
Uh-huh.
mushrooms are a primary food source of ergothioneine. So it's not just lion's mane. However, lion's mane has got to be the best studied and most well known. But there are other mushrooms that influence the body's growth of nerve growth factor or production of nerve growth factor. We know we've seen in preliminary studies that reishi also influences nerve growth factor in the body.
Wow.
But overall, I think that the scientific data is there to make a good argument to consume mushrooms regularly in your diet for a wellness health routine.
That's fascinating. I just pulled up a study here, Gina. I'm just going to show you this right here, and all the YouTube
Yeah.
viewers can follow along with us here. It's from the Journal of Nutritional Science
Yeah.
in 2020 November. And
Mhm.
look, the title here is ergothioneine, a longevity vitamin limited in the American diet, literally. So I'm really glad you just mentioned that. It's an amino acid really that most people are deficient in. So, and most people don't eat mushrooms all the time. So, and here's what
Right.
you just said right here. I'm going to quote this. I'm going to highlight this. Mushrooms are by far the leading dietary source of ergothioneine, but it's found in small amounts throughout the food chain, most likely due to soil-borne fungi passing it on to plants. So really
Right.
glad you mentioned the ergothioneine on that. Do you have any other thoughts with this being a longevity
Um,
vitamin? That's
Your
cool.
plant sources that we know of that are going to be higher, and they're still not as high as mushrooms, are black beans and oats. We know that those
Wow.
two plants seem to take on more of that ergothioneine that's passed along to them from the relationship their roots have with the soil-borne fungi.
That's incredible. So, first discovered in 1909 in the ergot fungus, hence the name ergothioneine. So
Mhm.
that's amazing. It's been shown to be an effective antioxidant. It's very stable and low in the diet, in the standard American diet. So more
Absolutely.
mushrooms, more
Yeah.
black beans, and oatmeal. I love oatmeal,
Yes.
by the way. I
They're in a
think
balance.
people
Yeah,
don't eat
definitely.
oatmeal anymore because they're afraid of carbs. It's unfortunate.
I know we have almost a pathogenic hatred for carbs in our
Yep.
diets, but or in our current society, but
Yep.
there are some out there that have unarguably wonderful health benefits, and
Absolutely. So
oats is one of those.
thanks
Yes.
for highlighting ergothioneine, Gina. That's very, very
Yes,
important.
absolutely.
So next up on the menu here, I wanted to dive even deeper then into some more mushrooms. You mentioned reishi's your favorite because it's so versatile. But why or when should someone take an individual mushroom like just Ganoderma reishi versus
Right.
a blend like the Breathe formula, which has the reishi and a couple other mushrooms in there? Let's hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that it really depends on the individual and what they're wanting to accomplish. We do have certain mushroom combinations. We have mushroom herb combinations that are really formulated for the intention of targeting a specific body system or a specific action because of all of their synergies and the way they work together. But sometimes people are wanting to focus on one one health outcome, one health goal, or they're wanting to just try one thing, one
Yeah.
herb, one mushroom. We call it simpling in herbalism. And there are people, especially with that have more sensitive biochemistries, choose very often to just take one substance at a time and see how they do with it before they start adding other substances in like they would in a formula. So when I would say if you are someone who is really, really interested in all the different benefits that mushrooms can have, you might want to consider a formula such as the Stamets 7 formula, which is a formula of 7 different mushrooms that set the stage for everyday immune support, but then they tick off all the boxes as far as supporting different body systems. So you have the lion's mane in there for the neurological system. You have the chaga in there for the epithelial cells and its antioxidant support it gives. The reishi is in there, and it's enough that per serving that you're going to get benefit the longer you take it. It's almost like a tonic.
Uh-huh.
But then you may be like, you know what? I just want to focus on cognition and memory. That's really what I want to focus on. And I just want to try lion's mane and see how that benefits my body. Then go with a single. You have that option out there as well.
Folks, we're talking with Gina Rivers of Host Defense Mushrooms and the National Science Educator at Host Defense Mushrooms. So this has been incredibly informative. We've touched on reishi, ergothioneine, lion's mane, and much more in today's episode, and how important it is to include mushrooms in your diet. Not only that, but also medicinal mushrooms. Can you quickly differentiate the two? Like if I go to the Whole Foods market right now and buy shiitake mushrooms compared to something like Ganoderma lucidum.
Shiitakes definitely, we call them beneficial. We try to differentiate our products from medicines because they're not medicines, they
Okay.
are supplements. So we call them beneficial mushrooms or functional mushrooms. And you can have an edible mushroom that is a functional mushroom, like shiitake. Shiitake is maitake is another one. Lion's mane is another one. They're edible. They're delicious. You can make a nice meal with them, and they also have functional benefit to your body systems and what we've seen and been demonstrated in the literature. Then you have mushrooms that are functional that are not necessarily edible because they are so hard you would break your tooth if you tried to
Okay.
eat them. Like the agarikon conch or like reishi or turkey tail. And these are not edible mushrooms, but they're mushrooms traditionally that have their polypores that are sort of tight, tough and chitinous. So the traditional way would be to extract them with either water or alcohol to extract the active compounds out.
Amazing. I'm also glad you mentioned the Stamets 7 so that we can hit on all the benefits. 7 specifically chosen mushrooms to help support more or less the entire body from head to toe. So,
Pretty
and
much.
thanks for
Yes.
clarifying that, not to call them medicinal mushrooms necessarily. That's important,
We've
because
gotten away from that. We have. And again, it's just like I was saying at the beginning of the conversation, we're not taking drugs. We're taking functional foods. But making it easier by putting them into capsules or extracts or powders. But they are still functional food substances.
got it. So, okay, that's good to know there. And then what's going to separate Host Defense in general from another company that offers, let's say, reishi mushroom or lion's mane? How is Host Defense different? And I mean, you're still choosing to be part of the team there, the education team. And why is Host Defense mushroom a standout, different type of company?
There's many
Yeah.
reasons. But we were the original mushroom supplement provider in the
Okay.
United States. We're all organic. We grow everything in the US under strict
Wow.
supervision of Paul Stamets. And Paul has been a mycologist for over 40 years. He's taught other people that have now come into the industry and started their own mushroom companies. And for Paul and for the rest of us, a core tenet of our company is education and research. We have many research papers that have been published and peer reviewed and published on the way we cultivate and grow our mushrooms and our mushroom products. And we have a team of over 11 researchers and PhDs that continuously study our products and create manuscripts for publication in peer-reviewed journals. And of course, education is one of our core tenets, and that's why I continue to educate for Host Defense. I've been with them going on 10 years now, and it's just a field where we're always discovering new things. We're always learning. We're always trying to get that wisdom, that mycelial wisdom out to the populace so they can discover how beneficial mushrooms can be for them.
And not too many owners or CEOs or founders of mushroom companies have been on the Joe Rogan podcast, so that's pretty cool. That really helped put mushrooms on the radar for a lot of people. And so thanks for highlighting that, Gina. With about just under 10 minutes to go here, about 5 minutes, I want to hear about your thoughts on fungal overgrowth and its relation to mushrooms, if this is something people need to worry about. Is this a completely different type of organism, or what are your thoughts there?
Absolutely. This is a question that does come up from time to time, not as much now,
Okay.
but it did a lot when I first started educating for the company. And it was, if I have a fungal overgrowth or candida, should I take mushrooms? Well, the scientific evidence says you absolutely should take some mushrooms for candida overgrowth. These are two completely different fungal organisms. And it reminds me of when I mentored under a German naturopath back in 1990, and people would come in and she'd put everybody on a probiotic. And people would look at me and say, "Are you crazy? You want me to swallow bacteria? Won't that make me sick?" And now we know it's two different bacteria, very different. Some are health beneficial, some are pathogenic. And sometimes the best way you can fight a pathogen is fighting fire with fire, and so you have beneficial or functional mushrooms, and then you have potentially pathogenic fungi like yeast or the ergot that grows on rye. And so sometimes the best way to do that, to limit the growth of those fungi, those particular pathogenic fungi, are to eat functional fungi. We have research that shows that reishi, shiitake, maitake, these are all functional mushrooms, actually can limit the growth of Candida albicans in the gut. We also know that turkey tail and reishi and lion's mane are highly prebiotic. And of course, if we have a higher complement of lactobacilli and bifidobacterium, they're going to crowd out the potential pathogenic fungi that can grow in the digestive tract. So there's really a good scientific argument to consume functional mushrooms if you're worried about a potential overgrowth of pathogenic fungi.
Oh, and it can help. There's a fungal microbiome too. It can potentially help balance that out.
The mycobiome.
The mycobiome, right?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Many people don't know about that. The MYCO biome, myco, like the fungal version of the bacterial microbiome. That's amazing. So I didn't know that, by the way, that every single mushroom in these products is grown here in America. Is that correct? And organic?
Absolutely. We
huge.
actually identify the source and most of them are sourced out of the ones that we grow. The tissue samples are collected from North American mushrooms as well. So all in the beautiful state of Washington.
Wow.
And we are USDA organic, WSDA organic, we're gluten-free, vegan. We try to tick all the boxes and reach the most people with our supplements. They're all third-party tested and quality assured. And we have several papers that are published on our products and how they're beneficial to human health.
Right, like your specific products studied in clinical settings, not
Absolutely.
just in general mushrooms. Yeah, that's huge.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's amazing. So one last question, and then we'll go into the recap for today's episode here with Gina. So some people don't like the fact that there's alcohol in the tinctures when they take a tincture version of, let's say, Stamets 7. Is this something that it's a different type of alcohol? It's not like having a beer or spirits or anything like that, right? Can you differentiate that for us?
It is organic cane alcohol, and it is absolutely essential when you're extracting mushrooms. Mushrooms are not plants. They don't have easy cell membranes that you can get into with, say, apple cider vinegar or glycerin. You have to have a strong solvent to get the terpenes and the lipids and the sterols, and we want all of those compounds out of that entire mushroom fingerprint, basically. So they are essential. If someone really has an aversion to the alcohol and the extracts, we definitely would recommend going with the capsules or the powders. Those are alcohol free. The powders can be mixed in a little bit of water. They're very palatable, and they're very economical as well. So that might be an option for that person that is super sensitive or just does not want that alcohol component that's in the extract.
Okay, good. So there's three mediums to get these mushrooms in through host defense. You have the tinctures, which has the alcohol extracts that we just talked about, capsule version, and powders, right?
Right.
Any salve topical options through host defense at this time?
Not at this time,
Okay.
but stay tuned.
Just wondering. Thank you. Cool. So let's give a recap then for what we talked about today. Gina's first time on the podcast. We've had her on 1100, the Pulse of AZ. So let's give a recap until the next time we have you on here, Gina.
Sure. Oh, I'm giving
Yeah,
you
go
a
ahead. Yeah,
You're doing it.
Give us a little summary for today.
The summary is to find some way to get beneficial mushrooms into your life, whether that's on your plate with organically grown, local cultivated mushrooms, in a supplement with organically grown, US grown host defense mushrooms, or some way to work them into your daily life to support longevity, to support neurological health, to support your immune system and your microbiome and your mycobiome. And I would just say experiment, find a delivery system that you like, that you're going to be likely to take. I always say don't buy an extract if it's just going to sit on your kitchen countertop and you're not going to take it. That's not going to do anybody any good. So definitely try a format that you're wanting to use that suits your lifestyle, and give it a try. Give it 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and see how mushrooms can wow and amaze you like they did me 12 years ago when I had my first experience with them.
Gina, thank you very much for coming on today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. This was fun. I hope to see you again soon.